Welcome to the podcast, the space where we journey beyond the literal to uncover the profound metaphysical truths hidden in ancient stories. Today we explore the narrative of Samson, a story not of physical feats, but of the soul's eternal battle with materiality, sensuality, and the illusions of the ego. This is the story of my soul, of your soul, and our collective journey through spirit, matter, and back to the divine. What is Samson? Who is Samson? Samson represents the embodiment of spiritual strength born of divine inspiration, consecrated to higher principles and tasked with liberating the soul from the dominance of sense consciousness. He symbolizes the dynamic interplay between spirit and materiality, highlighting the potential for immense power when aligned with divine will, as well as the vulnerabilities that arise when his strength is entangled with lower desires. His journey reflects the soul's struggles, triumphs, and ultimate redemption through the purification of consciousness and the recognition of spirit as the soul's source of true vitality and liberation. Let's get into it. The story of Samson spans 4 chapters in Judges, but this isn't a Bible study. This is an exploration of the metaphysical. Each chapter reflects an essential phase in the spiritual journey: awakening, temptation, struggle, and redemption. We'll dive into the symbols, the names, and the places, unveiling how they reflect our inner world. Samson's journey is about strength, yes, but a strength born of spirit, tested by materiality, and ultimately liberated by divine alignment. The metaphysical odyssey of Samson, a vibrant unfolding. Opening scene. Samson, a tale not about a man's physical strength, but of the soul's power to rise, fall, and ultimately conquer the illusions of materiality. Together, we'll peel back the layers, revealing the deep spiritual truths embedded in this ancient narrative. Samson's journey is not his alone. It's yours. It's mine. It's the story of spirit awakening, grappling with matter, and triumphing in divine purpose. So let's dive in. From the barren land of spiritual dormancy to the collapse of the temple of materiality, this is the metaphysical odyssey of Samson. The beginning, a barren land, and a divine promise. Our story opens in a state of stagnation. The Israelites, representing spiritual thoughts, have fallen under the oppressive rule of the Philistines, symbolic of sense consciousness. For 40 years, these illumined thoughts are dimmed, trapped by material illusions, yearning for liberation. These 40 years, representing a period of spiritual testing where the soul struggles to realign with divine principles. The Philistines, the 5-sense man, the ego's attachment to outer pleasures, always pulling the soul away from spirit. Into this barrenness, a divine spark ignites. Enters Manoah, a quiet, meditative state of mind, and his wife, a subconscious ripe with potential, yet unfruitful. An angel appears, a divine idea descending into consciousness, the promise, a child. Not just any child, but Samson, a strength born of spirit, consecrated from the start. The Nazareth vow, a life dedicated to purity. No razor shall touch his hair, symbolizing the unbroken intuition and spiritual vitality. No wine or unclean foods, reflecting the discipline required to remain aligned with divine truth. Mahanadan, the sacred boundary where judgment begins to stir. It sits between Zora, the subconscious purification of fear, and Ishtar, the soul's earnest prayer for deliverance. Samson's birth marks the awakening of spiritual strength, the stirring in the soul, a longing to rise above materiality. But every strength must be tested, and so the journey begins. The struggle, strength meets temptation. Samson, now grown, ventures into Timnah, a symbolic descent into the sensual realm. There, he is captivated by a Philistine woman. She represents the allure of sense consciousness, tempting spiritual strength to stray from its higher purpose. And yet, even in this descent, spirit is at work. The lion in the vineyard. The young lion roars, representing the ferocity of sense consciousness. Samson, empowered by the Spirit of the Lord, tears it apart. This victory symbolizes the soul's triumph over initial lower impulses. Honey in the lion's carcass. From the struggle emerges sweetness, spiritual understanding born of overcoming. This paradox, strength yielding nourishment, becomes the riddle of life itself. Samson's marriage to the Philistine woman, though short-lived, mirrors the soul's attempt to harmonize with materiality, a union destined to fail. But betrayal follows, for sense consciousness cannot sustain spiritual vitality. The battle, fire and the jawbone. Samson returns to his wife, only to find her given to another. Angered, he sets the Philistines' grain fields ablaze, using foxes tied tail to tail as his instrument. This furious act is more than vengeance, it's purification. The foxes represent scattered thoughts unified and directed by spirit. The fire, the consuming energy of divine transformation, burning all illusions and attachments. But the Philistines retaliate, burning Samson's wife and her father. The soul realizes the destructive nature of sense consciousness. It consumes even its own attachments. In response, Samson strikes, dismantling the foundations of materiality, hip and thigh, rendering it powerless. The jawbone of a donkey, humility, intuition, and endurance become the tools of spirit. With this simple instrument, Samson defeats 1,000 Philistines. These are error thoughts deeply rooted in the psyche. In Hakor, after the battle, Samson experiences a deep thirst. This is a deep yearning for spiritual renewal. From the jawbone springs water, symbolizing the soul's restoration through divine substance. Chapter 15 teaches us this. Spiritual strength, when aligned with divine principles, can dismantle even the strongest illusions. Yet, the battle is far from over. The fall, entanglement, and redemption. Now we come to the valley of Sorek, a low point in consciousness. Here Samson meets Delilah, the ultimate representation of sensuality. She is persistent, unrelenting, wearing down spiritual resolve. Day by day, Samson's vigilance erodes, and finally he reveals his secret. The cutting of hair. Intuition severed. Vitality lost. The soul, once strong, is now blinded and bound, grinding grain in the prison of materiality. Blinded eyes. Spiritual perception darkened, leaving the soul to toil under the weight of sense consciousness. And yet, spirit is never fully defeated. Even in bondage, Samson's hair begins to grow. Intuition regenerates. The soul, though weakened, retains the potential for renewal. The collapse, the soul's ultimate triumph. In this final act, Samson is brought to entertain the Philistines, a moment of humiliation for spiritual strength. But beneath the surface, something profound is stirring. Placed between the temple's pillars, Samson prays, calling upon the Spirit one last time. The pillars. These represent the false structures of materiality, the very foundations of ego and sense consciousness. The collapse. With divine strength restored, Samson pulls down the pillars, destroying the temple and all it represents. This act is the soul's ultimate liberation. Yes, Samson sacrifices his life, but this death symbolizes the surrender of the ego. In its place, spirit triumphs, dismantling material illusions once and for all. The sacred boundary, birth and rest. Samson's story ends where it begins, between Zorah and Ishtar. This sacred boundary, where spiritual strength was first stirred, becomes his final resting place. This return signifies the full circle of the soul's journey from awakening to liberation. Closing reflections. Samson's story is not one of failure, but of transcendence. It's a reminder that spiritual strength, though tested and even weakened, is indestructible when aligned with divine principles. We are Samson. We are the Israelites, and yes, we are the Philistines too. This tale invites us to reflect on where we are in our own journey, from the stirring of spirit to the collapse of the temple of materiality. Thank you for journeying with me today. May we all find strength to overcome, the resilience to rise, and the clarity to see the sweetness in every struggle. Peace is ancient.